This is Debbie Urbanik. I'm with D. Whitney Consulting, and we're here talking today on the Culture at Work blog. And I'm here with Tracie Sponenberg, who is the Chief People Officer at the Granite Group. And so pleased to have you with us today, Tracie. We're going to be talking a little bit about the journey of culture as we go through the COVID-19 crisis and some of the things that have gone really well and some of the things that maybe have given us some challenges as well. So Tracie, I'd love for you just to take a minute and introduce yourself to the organization and let everyone know your background and a little bit about the Granite Group. And then I have some questions for you.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. This is fun. So the Granite Group is a family-owned third-generation wholesaler of plumbing, heating, cooling water, and propane supplies. And we're based in Concord, New Hampshire. So we sell toilets. And as that, we're obviously an essential business because our products are going to plumbers and construction folks who need to be working during this time. I've been working in human resources for my entire career, a very long time, in a variety of industries, from publishing to professional services to I worked for a nutraceutical company. So I've done a number of different things over the years, and I've been with the Granite Group for about 5 years.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think as we think about the time that we're at and the way that companies are reacting and responding to COVID-19, one of the things that really struck me is that a lot of organizations, when times of crisis occur, people kind of draw back in and hunker down and start really focusing on process, right? They're like, we've just got to keep our heads above water. We've got to keep executing. And I always wonder what happens to culture during this time. And it seems to me that in some cases we have people that where culture may have been strong with an organization, that it's part of guiding them through and helping them. And then in some cases where maybe companies thought of culture as more like posters on the wall, where it might be a little bit more of a time of, wow, things are getting real here. And we don't have that underlying foundation of behaviors to rely on. So Tracie, I'd love to hear the role that you feel like culture played with you as you started to react to and respond to the COVID-19 crisis.
Sure. We have an excellent culture, and I know you'll hear most people who work in human resources say that, but we really do. We're the best companies to work. We've won numerous awards, and that doesn't mean anything other than you're trying to prove it to the world. But what really matters is when you come in and you talk to our people and how they feel about the company they work for and how they feel about the leadership and how they feel about their jobs and their commitment to their jobs and the difference that they can make in the lives of their customers and their coworkers. So we've been fortunate to have a really wonderful culture. We have a terrific CEO who's out. We have 45 locations across New England. He's out there all of the time, normally. Now it's a little more challenging. So I'm out there all the time. Other members of our executive team are out there all of the time. And when you give that time, because there's nothing more important than being face to face with our people in whatever form that takes at the time, you build up a lot of goodwill. And so our culture isn't just saying things or putting our core values of praise on the wall. It's being there for our people. And I talk about my role as CPO as being, my job is largely to make sure people are happy. There are many, many, many things that go into that, but that is my job, to make sure that our employees are happy. And if they are engaged and if they are satisfied, then the company will do well. And there are a lot of data points that support that. So we really, in good times and in bad, we really celebrate and lean on our culture because our only purpose is our people. Really, that's why we exist.
Absolutely. And tell me, as things started to go down, as it started to get very serious and conversations were changing and people were starting to think about, are my employees going to be home? Are they going to be at work? And how leaders respond. Tell me a little bit about how that leadership practice looked. Like, how did the leaders sort of walk that talk and make employees feel like they were being cared for? That idea of almost psychological safety happening throughout the COVID experience.
I remember this. So it was starting I think the week of March 8th when things really started to get serious. And I remember being at a conference, wasn't a conference. We have it's called TGG University. It's a program we develop for emerging leaders, and we have about a dozen people who go through that. And I like to go there and sit in on that. We have a facilitator that does that. And at the very beginning of the meeting, the facilitator asked everyone how they felt about COVID and how were they nervous, and on a scale of 0 to 5. And with, I think, one exception, everyone was a 0 or 1. And I'm sitting there going, boy, that's scary. And because in the meantime, down the hall, I had a mini war room set up to start planning on what our response was going to look like. So that was the day we formed our virus response task force. We created an email. We set the team, which is me, our CEO, COO, CFO, and our chairman. And we did that with executive team members so that we could make decisions quickly and respond. So we committed to daily emails, most including videos, and we've done that literally every day since, whether the news is good, whether it's bad, what our sales look like, what our response is. You know, we've communicated everything from, we have everyone who has in the company with 2 reusable masks. Some states require them, some states don't. Every branch is outfitted with reusable or disposable masks, hand sanitizer. We've done really unusual things like sourcing toilet paper and Lysol wipes and things like that to try to make sure that our people were safe, because they're on the front lines setting up social distance barriers. So that was a mechanism we did that through. Our CEO gave out my personal cell phone number and his personal cell phone number so that if anybody had any questions at any time, they could reach us. And in the beginning, and we're still getting a fair amount of response, but in the beginning, we heard from people all day, every day, all evening, all weekend. And I think it made them feel better to know that they could have that direct line of communication.
That's really an incredible step to take. That just opening up the door completely like that is really incredible. And that really does feed into an employee's sense, not only of safety and transparency, but it says you're important to me. It says that you're valued. And that's hugely important in a time of crisis for people to get that calming perspective. So kudos to you guys. That's the first I've heard of an executive actually giving out their private phone number to allow that kind of support, which is incredible.
Yeah. We have 600 people, so it's not a small amount.
Right, absolutely. Now, did anything happen that surprised you, or did you have any ahas that you'd like to share as you think about what you learned from going through this crisis?
I think I learned, I don't think anyone knew what to expect. So, you know, I learned a lot about our team, and I knew this certainly, but I learned how resilient and wonderful and committed our team was. I learned that sometimes, even though we talk so much about being proactive and the need to be proactive in business, that in times of crisis, you may be better off to be reactive. And the reason I say that is we wasted 0 time developing policies, procedures. Certainly we had some guidelines, but we could have spun our wheels and spent days and weeks developing playbooks and handbooks, but we just got right to business. So we had pretty early on, we had a positive case for one of our employees. We had to shut down our branch, and having the ability to be reactive within that group. So our virus response team meetings are still an hour at least every day now, but in the beginning, sometimes they stretched for 6 or 7 or 8 hours as we were planning these out. But having that ability to be reactive was absolutely critical to us serving our people in the best way we could and keeping them safe.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's almost like design thinking went into being at the organization. It was like, we are going to iterate as we go. We're just going to start creating and changing and evolving. Yep. That agility coming through, really.
We became agile. We didn't realize it. So
yes, right. It's a new skill, right? To add to the belt. How do you feel about the future? Like, as you think about returning, so, you know, you have been going on, you're at some companies that we talked to have had people that had to, you know, completely stop their line of business or really significantly modify it. But you've been really doing the best you can to fulfill and keep going as business as usual, as best you could. But as you think about coming back, to, post-COVID work interactions or post-COVID
Mhm.
culture considerations. Is there anything that you think you'll do as we come out of I think it's May 4th for us here in New Hampshire, where
Right.
we're supposed to all open back up. Anything that you're thinking about from a cultural perspective or even a lessons learned perspective that you're going to think about doing?
Uh, so for us, like you said, it's largely business as usual. However, business doesn't usually include our team members wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart from each other. So we've really had to figure that out in our branches, which are our customer facing locations. All of our showrooms, and we have 17 of them, which are the really fancy ultimate bath stores, which if you're familiar with our company, that's how you're probably familiar with them. Those are all virtual only for the most part, or appointment only. So we are taking customers, but only by appointment. Or we're having some folks work virtually. And then we have to rethink the office. And so what does that look like? And we did that in stages where we have to walk that really sensitive line of we have people who have to physically come into work every day. So what do we do with the office? And for those people who could work remote, they were encouraged to do so. And that really forced us, as I think it did a lot of companies, to think, well, do we really need everybody to be in the office? What are we gaining from that? Because we have weekly leadership meetings where everybody's on Zoom and they're all over. And do we really need to have those in person every time? And so I think we're going to see, as our own workplace and across the country, across the world, really, space look different. So work's going to look different. I think virtual work is here to stay for those who want to do that. And maybe some companies will choose to go all virtual. And I think that the concept of being physically present somewhere isn't as important as it was. So I think we'll see that a lot. And that's something that we're certainly dealing with too. Although it's such a tough role for us because we like to be out and physically in front of our people in all of our locations. So that's something we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. So I know the first thing I want to do is go visit all of our branches, but we have to do that in a safe way. And that could mean wearing a mask and staying a fair distance away from everyone, which is certainly a lot different than it was even 2 months ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I'm really interested in what you're saying about that work is going to look a little bit different as we come back, and I think that really counts for physically how we interact, right? And do we need to be there present, or can we do this virtually still and have more of our people actually consider that virtual employment kind of opportunity? And then I guess on a closing note, as we start to wrap, I'd love to think too. Did you learn anything new about your culture? And when I think about that, what I'd love to kind of have you imagine is looking forward and thinking about what you've come through and where you're heading. Is there anything from a cultural perspective that you're like, you know what, I'm really proud of this, or this is what we want to do going forward culturally to keep this feeling alive, or this sentiment alive?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about at the Granite Group about the culture of goodwill. And if your people are with you in good times, they're going to be with you in bad times. And we certainly have been through our fair share of bad times over the years. For us, this time we've been certainly impacted severely, but not as impacted as, say, many of our restaurants in the area or all around. So when we go through things, and we have gone through some tough things, and we went through furloughs, when you support your people in the good times, they stick with you in the bad times. And we committed to communicating, which we do every day. And so when we announced our furloughs, and they were very short term, instead of people sending us emails or calling us because we gave out the phone numbers and yelling at us or being upset, we got dozens upon dozens upon dozens of messages of support and thanks and calls of thanks. And it was really, really, really wonderful. So like I said earlier, I knew that the team was wonderful. And I really learned that through this process. And I learned that my team could really step up and learn something completely new. And we supported people in a way that we hadn't. And it was exhausting, and it was challenging, and things changed by the hour, but we figured it out. And that's what you do when you have a company like ours. You just move forward and you figure it out and you serve your people in the best way you can.
100%. Yep, absolutely. And I honestly think when I think about this crisis and I think about business world, that the HR teams are really playing such a hugely significant role. And it's truly, it's happening now, but I think as people start to re-enter and to re-energize and to ground themselves after COVID-19, it's going to become even more obvious the important role and how you guys have to walk hand in hand with other areas of the company in order to make sure that things are coming through correctly, that things are happening well. So your role, I think, is only going to continue to get more and more important as we come through and start to get back to work as usual. So thank you so much for giving me some time. I really appreciate it. I think you have done an amazing job there at the Granite Group, and look forward to continuing to talk and see how things are going.
Great. Thanks, Deb. Appreciate it.